Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Python tutorial. In this one we're going to be covering something different than search and sort algorithms. I'm going to take a break from that and come back to it. In this video we're going to be doing something I have spoken about a while back, which is we're going to be covering exception error handling, where basically let's say you have something that does maths, right? So you might have like, print a plus b. A plus B. Whoa, it keeps correcting me. Why does it keep correcting everything I do? It's probably because A and B don't exist yet, so it doesn't think I mean that. And let's say we have A equals something and then B equals something. Now, let's say A was integer input. Why is my Visual Studio going all weird? And we say, like, enter number 1. And then we say B is, integer input, enter number 2. And then we print them together. Now, you'll notice that this isn't going to cause any problems, 5 and 2 is 7. The only problem is, what if the person, which they are completely, allowed to currently, is, let's say they put in let's add 5 and hello. That's going to break your program, and it's going to throw an error message and basically say, value error, invalid literal for int with base 10 hello. Basically what this means is, this is the type of error, because there's different types of errors. So there's also like zero division errors, where like if you try and divide by 0, it breaks it. This is a value error. And then the type is invalid literal for int with base 10, which means that an integer takes in a base 10 value, which is any number from 0 up to 9. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And obviously any number with those numbers. So base 2 would be, 0s or 1. So if you had somewhere that it was maybe taking in binary and you put in a value that was not 0 or 1, it would come up with this, but it'd say base 2. But this is base 10. And then obviously after it tells you what the actual problem is, and the problem is like, hello isn't a number. If you want to dumb down what this means, it means hello isn't a number, we want a number, here's an error message. Now, you don't want that in your program, because let's say you actually had a program and someone did do that and it broke your program, you don't want people to break your program. So you need to have ways around it. So anywhere where people can put in anywhere people can put in values, or where numbers can be problematic, you need to have these exceptions. So we're going to be using what's called try and except. And what it means is try. So if I wrote try, and then here I put my code, and I put except, and then here's the rest of my code. It means that run this code as you would normally, but if there's an error message, do this. It's basically what it means. That's a simple way. So let's give an example. So say we said A equals 1, B equals hashtag, and we said, like, we want to print A divided by B. Now, what's this going to do? Well, it's going to turn A into an integer, so it takes it from string 1 to number 1. And it's going to try and divide it by integer B. But it can't turn B into an integer because it's not base 10. So what do you think is going to happen? We're going to get an error. Its hashtag is not base 10. So there's the problem. So now, this is how you would solve this. So let's say A and B were inputs and someone put in a hashtag. How would you solve this? Well, you would say try and then print. So it's going to run this code. Now, as far as I know, if you run a try just on its own, it's not actually going to work. You need to actually have the except too. We can try if you want. Yeah, it's not done properly. Okay. Stop debugging. So after the try running this code, we want to have the other case. So we'll say except this. So remember, whoops. I was wondering I misspelled it, yeah. Try this, accept this. We can't just put accept though, we have to say what kind of error message. So remember, it's called value error, so we'll say value error. There you go. Accept value error. Do this. Print, not a number. Okay, so remember what it does. It says run this code, and then if there's an error message of type value error, do this. Okay. Let's see. Not a number, because there's an error message because it's not a number. Now, we can be a bit more descriptive in this. You can actually say accept value error as and in a variable. So like, we won't use I, we'll use E because I is generally used for loops. And then after the string, we can put like error code E. And basically E is going to be the type of error. So even though it's a value error, it gives you the actual thing. So it says, it basically prints the error message as a string. Now the benefit to doing this as it is now, this isn't the fully like finished thing. If we then have code after the error, so if we print hello, it's not actually it's gonna print it, you know, we're gonna get hello. Whereas normally the program would break at this point and just kind of stop. So this stops, if an error happens, it basically just doesn't run this code. This just gets ignored. This kind of saves it from breaking. Now, we don't really want that. Let's say, okay, this is now a more real life situation. So let's say we were doing some maths and it was like, you know, so we'll just say print, you know, enter 2 numbers to be added. And then below it, it said like a equals int input, yeah, enter number 1, as I was showing earlier, but I'm going to show how to fix it. So, and then b equals int input, enter number 2. I'll also zoom in a bit, even though it's probably visible, but some people seem to view it on their phone and say they want it zoomed in. So currently all this, you know, does is print something, and it says enter number 1, enter number 2. Now, what happens is, with this line, what it says is we're saying a equal to this. Now, generally, when you're trying to figure out what when you've got multiple brackets, when you try and figure out what it does is you work from the inside out. So if we go to the innermost thing, it's this. We have a string, which is just basically what gets displayed for this input here. So we'll get an input and we enter the number 5, but it'll take it in as a string. So we'll get, you know, we'll get 5 like this. But what it does is once we've got this 5, we then put it inside another bracket, which is a function called int, which basically converts the thing inside the brackets to an integer. So an a ends up as an integer, and so is b. Now obviously if we say then print, you know, a plus b, this is what I did earlier. If we do like 2 and 7, we get 9. But just as I did earlier, if we now print, you know, like 5 and n, oh no, it's not base 10. So the way we go around this, when Python decides not to be annoying, whoopsie daisy. Yep. We need to use try and except. So before we print a plus b, we want to say try a plus b. Well, actually, what we'll do is we won't, because this takes 2. Let me just try something actually. Yeah, we actually get the problem earlier, and the reason we get it here is because when we try and turn it into an integer here, this causes a problem. So actually, in my opinion, the best way to do it would be just to ignore the integer input thing and just have inputs, so that we don't get errors there, because that becomes more messy. And then we print int a plus int b. There we go. That's a better way of doing it, so that we guarantee that it basically does the same thing, put int here or int there. So like if I put in f now, it's going to be fine until afterwards. Then it throws the error here. So we're going to say try this. Try this, except, I mean, we could just put like print, you know, but we'll do it again, not a number. We're just setting this back up to how it was earlier. So if we put in 2 numbers, it's fine. And if we put in, if it comes up with an error message, so like, not a number. But we want it to be, if they don't enter a number, then we want it to do it again, basically. So what we could do is we could say enter, we could put this in here, right? So we're going to try this code in here, we're going to do these. And then if there's an error, it's going to run this. But what happens? Let's see what happens. So enter the two numbers to be added. 23 and 245. Yep, does it. Fine. Now, what happens if we go number, letter, not a number, but it still doesn't ask us again. We want it to keep taking in inputs until we enter just numbers. So what we can do is we could say, we just have an infinite loop. So we'll say like while 1. Now what while 1 is true, 0 is false. So if we just leave it while 1 basically is always true. We could put like while 1 does not equal 0, just anything that's always true. And then we want to do all of this code here. Now, so this is going to infinitely run this. But we want at some point to break out of the while loop. And we want to break it out when this doesn't get called. Now there's this, basically how this works is, when you have a loop and you want to get out of it, you use what we call break. Now in this case, we put break here. It's inside the try right at the end, which basically means if we get to the end of try and there's no error messages, if this basically except never happens, because what it'll do is it'll read this line by line, and as soon as we find an error message in here, that's this, it's going to run this. I put accept. Now that works, but it's probably better to do value error, because if you get a different error message, you don't want it to assume it's not a number, because you might take some kind of second action that is the case for if you don't enter a number, but you might have like, what if you do enter a number and it's 0 and you're dividing and you get a 0 division error, you need a separate accept. I could do another video on this if we get more in depth, but I feel like I only need to do a little bit more really to get you to understand what this is and implement it into your own programs. So we'll say, well, yeah, accept value error. Now what this will do is it'll infinitely do this until I eventually do enter, thingy. So if I go now, 2, 7, done, is 9. Now what happens if I go, 4, hi, not a number, enter number 1, 4, 3, blah, blah. Every time I, don't enter, if any of the times I do it, 1 or 2 is not a number, it's going to ask me again. So let's say I keep going down. So enter number 1. If I now eventually enter 2 numbers, it'll exit. It'll give me my value, 3 plus 7, and it'll exit. So it's going to keep on asking and keep asking, keep asking, keep asking forever until we break out the loop, which is when there's no error. Okay? Now, to be honest, I think that's as much as I need to cover this tutorial. There are a few more little things to cover with this, try and accept, but in general, the problem you're going to get 99% of the time are value errors with, not taking in the right kind of thing. If you ever want to write a try and accept for something which you get a different error message for, just look at the name of the error message. So it might be like division by 0 or whatever it says the error message name is, and just instead put that here. Or if you're really unsure, you could just, leave it as accept, but I would recommend putting, if we put error, you'll see how many errors there are that you can kind of account for. Obviously this isn't a 0 division error, but if we did do that divided by that, can't divide by 0, and then let's say we enter 2 numbers and I put 2 and 3, it's fine. But let's say I put divide 2 by 0, can't divide by 0, so yeah, you get what I mean. So I put 2 by s, it's going to cause an error because we've accepted 0 division, but we haven't given any case for value error. Now let me just test whether I know what I'm doing for this. I'm not actually sure whether you can put another accept. So I put accept value error and print, not a number. I actually do want to just check. Can you actually have multiple accepts? I think you can. Yeah. So you can basically have custom different outputs depending on what error they cause. So that's basically how you do that. Obviously, you could have one general response, which is just doing accept like this. But if you want to have a different response for whether they enter 0 to divide or not a number in general, you might want different try and accepts. But anyway, I'll leave that up for a second. There it was. Okay, so anyway, I hope this video helped. It should solve some of your problems if you're getting annoyed by, you know, accidentally entering something and then it comes up with errors and it crashes and you have to do it all again. It is quite important to know this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that's everything. So as usual, obviously if you want to see more of these videos or more of any videos on my channel, then liking and subscribing would help, and leaving comments of what you want to see. We have a Discord channel which is growing pretty rapidly. I put the link in the description for every video. This weekend, from Friday midnight to Sunday midnight in British Standard Time (BST), we'll be doing a server game jam where, well, the topic will get decided at the time, and you know, you have 2 days to make the game from scratch with a team size of 1 or 2 maximum, and then you submit it at the end of the time, and then me and my admins will review the games, give them scores on different aspects of the game, whether it's, you know, the actual gameplay or the art or the how close it is to the theme and so on, and give them all a score. And then in the next few days I will do a video reviewing the top 3 games that we chose, and that means that you have the incentive of 1, practice, 2, fun, and 3, publicity on the channel. So I mean, you know, if you want to get people to see what your work is, what your work can do, and also if you just want to take part for the fun of it, then, you know, feel free. The more the better. But anyway, I think I've said anything, so if I haven't got anything else to say, thanks for watching, and goodbye.